The 2013 announcement of Star Wars Battlefront excited some folks and put others in dread. The reason for this is because Star Wars Battlefront is an older and beloved franchise. The original Star Wars Battlefront and its sequel, Star Wars Battlefront 2, were critically acclaimed and are still played down to this day. So why is there so much excitement over the new game? There's really only one way to find out. So, for May 4th, 2015, aka Star Wars Day, I decided to give Star Wars Battlefront 2 a shot. I'd not played the game before, and it was kind of burning a hole in my backlog of shame. To find out why the series has so many fans, and to see if I should be excited for the new game, I decided to give Star Wars Battlefront 2 a shot.
My first day as a member of the 501st. It was hot, it was sandy, chaotic. Nothing at all like the simulations on Camino. Of course, that's pretty much the way it was for all of us, wasn't it? All that breeding, all those years of training, it doesn't really prepare you for all the screaming or the blood, does it? Frankly, I'm still amazed we ever made it through the first hour. Never mind the first day.
After starting up the game, I popped into the tutorial. It did a pretty good job of teaching the game's basic mechanics, as well as showing off the different classes in the game. After the tutorial, I didn't feel that I was quite ready for multiplayer, so I decided to try out some of the single-player campaign. I'll be honest. The fuzzy, low-resolution cutscenes don't really look that good in the year 2015. I suppose they were acceptable, though, when the game was released in 2005. The story of the game, I discovered, was pretty interesting. It's told from the perspective of a clone trooper. You're not really sure who he is exactly. From what you can tell, though, he's lived a pretty interesting life. At the start of the game, this clone trooper is part of the 501st Legion, which is part of the Old Republic. While the story in the cutscenes is told through the perspective of this trooper, in the game you can swap between characters. Personally, I found myself favoring the jetpack troopers. Being able to fly above the battlefield really was quite advantageous. Sometimes, however, after accomplishing a certain objective, I was given the option to switch to a Jedi Master. In the first level, I got to play as Mace Windu, and I discovered the joys of hurling lightsabers around. In the campaign, as far as I've played, not very much of a story thus far has been told through the gameplay, unless you're willing to count the little things that happen in battle, such as an entire squadron of clone troopers getting wiped out by Acklay. The way the game tells the story through cutscenes is neat, but not particularly special. That said, if you're familiar with Star Wars lore and the idea of being a part of the battles of the series sounds exciting to you, good news. While I confess to having not played an awful lot of the game, there are quite a few interesting locations from the series in the game, such as the interior of the Death Star, Hoth, and Naboo. While I found some of the vehicles a little bit unwieldy, for the most part they were pretty fun to ride around. The space battles in the game are also really neat. The last time I played a shooter that included a space battle segment was Halo Reach. While the space battle segment of Halo Reach was pretty cool, it pales in comparison to that of Star Wars Battlefront 2. In Star Wars Battlefront 2, you have your pick of just about any flying vehicle from the Star Wars franchise. Well, perhaps just about any is a bit of an exaggeration. Still, there's quite a variety of flying vehicle. However, it gets even better. Unlike in Halo Reach, in Star Wars Battlefront, during a space battle, you can actually board an enemy ship. Imagine, if you will, riding your X-Wing or your TIE Fighter or what have you, all the way into the enemy dock, popping out, wreaking havoc on their droids, and then heading deeper into the bowels of the ship to destroy it from within, and then escaping in an enemy ship just in the nick of time. It's crazy, and it's a whole lot of fun. Star Wars Battlefront 2 seems to have a very powerful sense of mobility. I never really felt as though I was sitting stagnant for too long. While the game is very fast-paced and I, a new player, could occasionally get a little bit disoriented, on the whole I had a great time navigating and fighting through the maps. The space battles that so wonderfully combined the game's primary mode of combat with dogfighting in space were absolutely fantastic. Interestingly enough, the space battles are totally optional. If you're not good at them but you'd like to advance through the campaign, you can just skip them. After playing through some of the campaign, I decided it was time to give multiplayer a shot. In order to enjoy online multiplayer for Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's necessary to install the Game Ranger software. This is because the official servers for Star Wars Battlefront 2 were shut down last year. However, the fans have been keeping multiplayer going. I quickly learned that I'm very, very, very bad at multiplayer in Star Wars Battlefront. Even though my own internet connection seems just fine, and I can play most other games laglessly, unfortunately for Star Wars Battlefront 2, I had issues connecting to the servers. While I was able to get into the servers just fine, as I played the game, I often encountered connection issues. I can't exactly say why this was, as other players didn't seem to have the same problems. However, I did get a pretty good idea of what goes on in multiplayer. The game modes are a lot like those of other FPSs. There's the good old capture the flag, conquest mode, in which you capture these nodes by standing near them, so essentially king of the hill, hero assault, aka team deathmatch, and space assault, in which both teams have motherships, and they're bent on destroying one another with their own ships. For the time that the multiplayer actually did work for me, I had a lot of fun. The space battles work very well in multiplayer. While I did have a little gripe about the way that ships spawned in the hangar, it was kinda tricky to get a hand on one. Once I was airborne, I was directly back into the action. Also interesting in multiplayer is the way that the battles are sometimes asymmetrical. In one level, while I got to play as a stormtrooper, the other players were Ewoks. They had substantially different weaponry as well as abilities. While it seemed that they couldn't hit quite as hard as the stormtroopers, they had the advantage of stealth, as I hardly ever saw the little guys. Then, too, in other levels, you may be playing a battle droid while the other team is made up of stormtroopers. As mentioned before, there's a multitude of classes in Star Wars Battlefront 2. This is something I appreciate, as it lends a great variety to the gameplay. You can play as a Wookiee, an Ewok, a Gungan, though I can't see why you'd want to, and of course there are various sorts of stormtrooper available. So to break things down, Star Wars Battlefront 2 has several awesome classes, a metric ton of maps, strong gameplay, various multiplayer modes, an interesting single-player campaign, all of this contributing to the game's tremendous replayability. This combination of factors makes it obvious as to why Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a hit when it was released, and is still loved today. I dipped my toes into the game's waters for Star Wars Day, but I definitely intend to take a full dive later on this year. I also can't wait to see what Electronic Arts does with the franchise when the new Star Wars Battlefront comes out on November 17, 2015. Once the game's available, I just might have to do a comparison episode for the Blackman and Robin Irregular Game Show. Do you have any fond memories of the Star Wars Battlefront franchise? Hit us up on Twitter at Blackman and Robin, and be sure to let us know. If we like what you have to say, we just might feature your thoughts on the next episode of the Blackman and Robin Game News Update. Also, be sure to follow me at Jourdan_Cameron on Twitter. You can hear more of my Star Wars-y thoughts, as well as my thoughts about other games, and occasionally I like to give away Steam keys, so keep your eyes open.